This is your blogger-in-chief, Matt Rooney. We're inching closer and closer to Election Day, now that the Senate race is out of the way, and now we're staring down the barrel at the gubernatorial race between Chris Christie and Barbara Buono. But of equal importance are the many legislative races that are happening across New Jersey in all 40 districts. One of the ones that has pundits, commentators, analysts, and true believers is LD3, where Niki and her running mates, Larry Wallace and Bob Vanderslice, are seeking to overcome the ticket that's led by Senate President Steve Sweeney. They're putting up a heck of an effort, and a lot of people think that it might be one of our best opportunities as Republicans to score an upset on Election Day. So I'm very happy that Niki has taken a little bit of time to stop by and speak to us and let us know how her campaign's going. Niki, it's great to have you with us.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate you having me here.
You have probably one of the most contentious and difficult races to run because you're up against a guy that's got a lot of money and a lot of name recognition and a lot of power, Steve Sweeney. Lately, they've been running a lot of negative ads, saying a lot of things about you that if I didn't know better, I might cross the street if I saw you on the same side of the block as me. Has that surprised you? Were you expecting that level of nastiness from the other side, or has it been something you've had to adjust to in the early phase of this campaign?
Well, I definitely expected that they would come guns blazing. This is a very contentious race, and Senator Sweeney is, and his running mates, I believe, they can't stand on their own record. So we fully expected them to come after us and attack us. And because they can't attack us on our poor records over the last 10 years, they have to go after us personally. I have to admit I didn't expect them to stoop to such a personal level, and that is absolutely disappointing. I know me and my running mates would not do the same type of antics. We like to make sure that what we're saying is true and that we're going to go on the record and the issues, but unfortunately they don't feel the same way.
Yeah, what a concept, right? Even though this is your first time running for legislative office, this is not your first foray into public service. You have been in office before. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your past experiences serving the people of New Jersey, particularly those in your neck of the woods down here in South Jersey, and how that informed your view of how Trenton should operate better?
Well, for me, it's always about making where you live a better place. So while part of my life has been public service, it's also about helping out in your community. So I was deputy mayor when I lived in Harrison Township, but before that I was volunteering for the American Cancer Society Relay for Life. Then I stepped up and volunteered for my township planning board, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I just wanted to take on more and help out at a bigger level every step of the way. At Harrison Township, I was proud to be deputy mayor there. One of my big things was always making sure that we worked constantly with our small businesses on Main Street. For me, they are the lifeblood of our community. So that was always something that was a passion for me, making sure we developed our Main Street. And I think we did a good job while I was there. I know they continued to do that after I left. And then from there I was proud to work for the State Comptroller's Office for the last 4 years, and I also had the perspective of seeing really the fraud, waste, and abuse in government at all levels, state departments, agencies, county, municipal. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not, but we need to make sure that we are constantly working to make government more efficient, to work harder, work smarter, and not look to our residents and our business owners and to solve our budget problems by taxing them, by increasing fees, by overregulating them. We need to really steer the ship in a better direction, and I think the governor has started to do that. But I personally believe he needs help in the legislature to do that.
Oh, no doubt about it, and I'm sure our listeners will agree with you there. The State Comptroller, Matthew Boxer, you referred to the fact that you worked in that office a moment ago. Some of our listeners will be familiar with a recent investigation that he brought to the public light where we found out there was massive fraud in our public schools regarding school lunches and funding. So, he and you and the other great people that work in that office have really been doing yeoman's work over the past few years to try to bring some of this stuff to the public's attention. Corruption is something which is just endemic in politics, but particularly in New Jersey. And I know I don't have to tell you, Nikki, how much of it we see here in South Jersey. But I think a lot of people get very discouraged because they think that both parties are the same, that nobody can do anything about it. What are some of the things that you would advocate as someone who has a lot of experience in these types of investigations? What would you advocate as a New Jersey state senator that could possibly make it at least easier for these types of individuals and these types of schemes to be identified and actually addressed?
Well, I think one of the things that we always looked for is making sure that there were not loopholes in programs, making sure we tighten up, eligibility for certain types of programs, or making sure that departments didn't have too many exemptions, that they didn't have to follow their own rules. I think that's a huge component of it. And then, of course, the other aspect is, from our office, we constantly had to do checks and make sure that we were fair and go through and rotate throughout the state and to make sure that we were looking at everybody closely and fairly and making sure everybody was transparent and accountable for what they were doing.
We spoke to one of your two running mates, Larry Wallace, last week. He's running for state assembly along with Bob Vanderslice. You're running for state senate. And we discussed how you have recently met with a number of business leaders doing business roundtable discussions around your district, the 3rd Legislative District. Larry really had some great information that he shared with us coming out of those meetings. Is there anything that you learned about the obstacles these business leaders are facing from Trenton that you plan on addressing once you finally get up to the State House?
Well, I think the overarching theme was something that I think especially Larry and Bob as business owners themselves in our community know firsthand, which is something I had said earlier. We can't look to businesses to solve all of our budget problems. And the other thing is they're being overregulated, and the representation now is they're not making decisions based on the business owner's best interest. They're not thinking about how any decisions that they make would impact the businesses and the economy of our state. And one of the things that I know, even though it was on a very small level in a township, you have to have a constant dialogue with business owners, and you have to, when you have something before you, a bill before you, or a bill that you want to propose yourself, you need to make sure that you talk to them and you discuss with them how it's going to impact them and get their feedback. And that's something that needs to happen on a daily basis. It's not something that you can do, every 6 months, check in with your local business to see how things are going. It's something, you are their representation, you're their voice, and that's what you are elected to do. And it's something that you have to do every day, that you are their senator, or else you're letting them down. And quite honestly, that goes also to every resident, whether you're a business owner or not. You need to be accessible to your residents, you need to talk to them daily, and you need to make sure that you are addressing their concerns. And as an attorney, and you can understand this, is when you have clients and you represent them, you need to be able to communicate with them constantly. Keep them up to date on their issues, their concerns. Be their voice, be their advocate. When you cannot handle it the way that you think you could have when you talked to them originally, you need to go back to them and tell them that we may need to deal with it differently to get the end result.
And I think that's such a brilliant point, because I think that all the time. If I was as irresponsive as some of these individuals are in public office to my clients, I'd have an ethics complaint.
Exactly.
If I even had any clients left.
Exactly.
Exactly right.
I've always taken my philosophy as an attorney and being my client's advocate and listening to them and listening to their concerns. I took that approach when I was deputy mayor, and it would work for me in both ways. And I intend to do the same thing when I'm in Trenton.
How many doors do you think you've knocked at this point?
Collectively, we probably are over. We may even be over 5,000 by now. I don't know. I know we're definitely over 4,000 at this point. I'm probably knocking on every day. It's not raining. Probably 100 doors till it gets dark on me every night. It is so important that we get out there. We are going to be outspent, outnumbered, and the best thing that we can do is talk to every single person we possibly can. Get our message out there. Show people that we are the real deal, real people who really mean the right things and are saying the right things that people need. And we want people to understand who we are, get to know us, and know that we will always have their best interests at heart. So for me, knocking on every physical door I possibly can is so important to me. And I want people to see that on a daily basis, that they know that I will work even a million times harder when they elect me, and that I will absolutely not let them down, and be very thankful for the opportunity they've given me.
One of the interesting storylines of election 2013 in New Jersey is how many strong, impressive, articulate Republican women are running across the state, particularly here in South Jersey. Susan Adelizi Schmidt down in the 1st Legislative District also comes to mind, and we also have some other great legislators down in this part of the world, Diane Allen, Dawn Adiego up in Burlington County. It also brought to mind for me an article I was reading the other day. It may have been Politico, it may have been Real Clear Politics, where they interviewed a number of women in Congress who were saying that they were the only adults left, and that if we had more common sense, strong, assertive women in Congress, we could have avoided the shutdown. Do you think there's something to that? Do you think that maybe all of these great Republican women we have running this year could add something to the discussion in Trenton and maybe enable legislators to look at things a little bit differently?
Look, I think, in any instance, the best person for the job should get the job, regardless of their gender. But do I think that if you have two equally minded people, maybe somebody that might have a softer hand, or a tendency to have a softer hand, or might be more willing to compromise, or at least hear somebody else's opinion, right. I think that can be an advantage. I think that can be helpful, and I think sometimes you have too many like-minded people in one room, and you need different perspectives in order to really bounce ideas off each other and make sure that you are doing the best possible thing. And I think sometimes if you have too many people that are too alike, sometimes everybody agrees, and you need the back and forth. I know, a perfect example, my husband and I were both attorneys, and whether it was had different cases, or whether I was doing something for my township, you come home and you bounce ideas off each other, and I think I've done the right thing, or he thinks he's done the right thing, and you come home and the other one says, well, what about this, or what about that, and you need people who aren't always helping you get a balanced input back and forth. So I think different perspectives are very important, and I'm proud to be a Republican woman representing our organization, our party, and hopefully going forward in the future in Trenton.
When you knock on one of those 5,000 doors and someone opens it up, someone who I think in many ways is justifiably a little cynical about the process, and they say, okay, we've been represented by, Celeste Riley, Rosichelli, Steve Sweeney for I don't know how many years, and they've said a lot of very similar, interesting, optimistic, positive type of things to us about our taxes and what they're going to do for us if they go to Trent, and they haven't done any of it. What about you is going to be different? What's the answer that you give them?
Well, I take a step back and I say, look, this is why I'm doing this, and I explain kind of where I started in this interview, which is how I got into this in the first place. I think it's important for people to see the type of person I am. I'm doing this because I genuinely believe that I'm the right person to do that, and to make sure that our interests are best represented. I like to think that I've done things as an attorney, as in my township committee, that I'm very proud of. I think I'm a good person with a good heart, and I'm also a strong advocate for whoever I represent. So I like to think, and I try and walk them through how I got to this point, and I think that once they see the type of person I am and who I am, they feel comfortable that maybe this is the right person to do that, and maybe this person really will make a difference.
And when you knock on those doors and you get to that point in the conversation where you're talking about the issues and what you're going to be doing that Steve Sweeney isn't doing, do you find that voters are aware of what a roadblock he's been to the Christie agenda? We have all these Democrats running around the state right now, but particularly in South Jersey, who have made Chris Christie's life very difficult for the past 4 years. But all of a sudden, here at the very end, they kind of found religion, and they love the governor. Are they aware of all of the times that he's blocked the governor's judicial nominees, have prevented a 10% across the board for everybody income tax cut for your state income taxes? Are you finding that there's awareness, or is that something that you're really having to Explain to people.
It depends on the door. I can't say that, there's 50% of the people that think that they've been, the governor and Senator Sweeney have been, arm in arm, or, 50% that see him as a roadblock. It depends on the door that you get to. It is funny to me also to see that how, a lot of the people that are in there now that we're running against are taking credit for the last 4 years. And the thing that's always frustrating to me is, well, what did you do for the last 8 years? Why are you getting all of these great ideas on how to handle things now that the governor's up there, and all of a sudden you're focused on pension reform and property tax relief, and you haven't done it up until now. Instead, before that, they raised taxes and fees 115 times. And
haven't touched Chris Christie's toolkit, which is a
Exactly.
vital part about bringing property taxes down in the long run. I know a lot of people, the cap went through, the rate of increase of property taxes are down dramatically, but now a lot of towns have gone and found a loophole, which is that they go ahead and they charge fees for just about every service.
Exactly.
Some towns are charging fees for people to use recreational facilities that were built with public money. And I just don't think people always understand that, unless you vote out somebody like Steve Sweeney, like Celeste Riley, like Bersacelli, it's never going to change.
No, it absolutely isn't. And we need people in there that are going to take a more aggressive stance on some of those issues. I know part of the governor's toolkit includes civil service reform, sick leave payout. Being up at the state for the last 4 years, believe me, I know firsthand, those are changes that we need to make. And he hasn't been able to get those bills passed because we're not in control, and we don't have people in the legislature that understand that those changes really need to be made. You started to see a shift when I was up there in departments having to make harder choices in their budgetary decisions and staffing, and that was a dramatic shift from the prior administration. But without having help in the legislature, we're not going to get where we need to get. We're not going to get to the financial stability that we're all hoping for without more help in the legislature. And that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I tell people all the time, and this is me talking, not you talking, if you go and you vote for Chris Christie on November 5th, but then you continue to vote for the Democrat that's also on the ballot, it doesn't matter how great a game that Democrat talks. It doesn't even matter if the Democrat is kind of a moderate Democrat. At the end of the day, they caucus with and give the majority to the party that is obstructing Chris Christie and keeping your property taxes moving in a northward direction. So that's just my 2 cents. They know where I'm coming from, Nikki. I lecture the Save Jerseyans all the time. But as a final note, Nikki, I know people are listening to this, and the Save Jerseyans are liking what they're hearing, whether they be in your district down in the Gloucester County, Salem, Cumberland County area, or whether they're all the way up the Turnpike in Bergen or Passaic. What's a way that they can help you, and where can they find out more information about you and your running mates and the campaign you're running?
Absolutely. The easiest way is actually to go to www.nikiforsenate.com.
And how many K's in Nikki?
It's Niki.
Okay, so there's one, because at first I had to get that straight myself, because it's one of those names you see spelled both ways. So
Yes.
1K.
1K. And from there you can actually link to Larry and Bob as well. You have the ability to sign up, to donate, to volunteer, to help out, make phone calls. We need all the help we can get. And as you've seen in yesterday's election with the U.S. Senate race, some counties it was a lot closer than some people might have expected, and we need to make sure everybody gets out to vote on November 5th. So I encourage people to go to our website, share our information, help us out, and get us across the finish line.
And the point you raised about the New Jersey Senate race, I think, is very interesting. It's a special election, so it's obviously a little bit different. But the Republican senatorial candidate carried Salem County, and he came within 1 point of winning Gloucester County. And Cumberland County was also very close.
Very close.
And you have to assume that if he came that close, that Chris Christie is going to win many of those counties by a double-digit margin. So forget whatever else you're hearing. Forget about how much money Steve Sweeney has. We all know that he's bankrolled by the bosses and big labor and everything else. These races are winnable if enough people donate, get to the phone banks, and most importantly, on November 5th, make sure they get everybody they know to the polls. Not people that live in graveyards or anything like that, because we're not like the other side. We want people who are actually able to vote and register to vote. But this is within our power to do, people. So really make sure, especially if you know somebody in the 3rd Legislative District, that you share this audio video with them and you allow them to meet Niki Trunk, because I'm sure you're going to have as good a first impression as we have here today. Niki, I really appreciate you taking time away from door knocking to meet with us.
Absolutely.
And we wish you all the best down the stretch of this campaign, especially for your running mates, Larry, who's a good friend of this blog, and Bob Vanderslice as well.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you, Niki.